Hi there, this is Greg LeGros.
And this is Jamie Dew.
Of Fully and Completely. You're listening to...
Welcome to Fully and Completely, a irregular podcast where we go through the chronological history of the Tragically Hip, album to album, talking about. I can't do the Greg thing. I'm not the Greg thing doer. It's me, Jamie. I am Gregless at the moment as I record this introduction to another volume of Hipstories. This week we have a really interesting and enlightening guest, as we always do. But this week, maybe somebody who's a little bit more inside. Let me read you a quote from the Michael Barkley book. Jake Gold is a character. Hero, villain, hustler, angel, bully, business mastermind. Forget about the hip, one musician told me. Write about Jake. That's who your story should be about. That's from The Never-Ending Present by Michael Barkley. So if you haven't put it together, I don't know what's wrong with you, but this episode we're sitting down with Jake Gold. We got some time with him earlier this week, and we were delighted to just listen to him talk. I mean, this is somebody who was with the band for 18 years, helped bring them to the mainstream, when they were signed in 1986, and was with them right through to 2002. So that's a hell of a run for anybody in the music business. But with our favorites, the Tragically Hip, that is a massive amount of time spent with this band. So I can tell you from a business mastermind perspective, Jake sat down as we were setting up our gear. He had ideas for the podcast. He's just a out of the box thinker, and again, a real delight to sit with. So why don't we go to that right now? This is Jake Gold on Hipstories.
Coming up from our double live at Budokan album, this is called Small Town Bringdown. To die too easy, why stick around? I want my life to please me, not another small town, hometown breakdown. This is in your might as well get pissed. Don't you dig that style? Make your trip, there ain't much to miss when your mind's unwind. It's a sad thing, bourbon's all around. Stop that feeling when you're living in a small town. You're long and lean, things don't get you down. You're the top, very much. For this opportunity, we'd like to thank your favorite rock station, Q107,
So we don't have to do that stuff, make it awkward.
putting on this shindig.
Came to Toronto as a very young person. By default, you are Canadian at this point. You've been here
most of my life. Yeah,
Like,
my father was Canadian, and he moved us from New York when I was 2 years old. But I was born in New Jersey, moved to Manhattan when I was 6 months old, where my mom was from. My brother was born there, and then we all moved here in 1960. Yeah, so that's. But I have lived. I lived in LA from 79 to 81, and I lived in New York from 98 till 2002.
What was LA like in the late 70s, early 80s? What was that scene like? So were you pursuing music at that point?
Well, I was actually working as a technical director at the Variety Arts Center, and to make money, I was selling office supplies over the phone. So there's an argument that says I got my phone chops from doing that, because I would work from 6 a.m. till 11 a.m. every day, and convincing people to buy toner and developer for their photocopiers. And there was a great sales manager there who literally taught me how to sell over the phone. And you could be anybody you wanted over the phone. Mm-hmm. There was no internet. You couldn't look anything up. Like, you could be anybody you wanted. And so you never used your real name.
Oh, wow.
So if anything went down or customers complained or whatever about you, whatever, they just say, yeah, we fired that guy. And then they'd call back to the boiler room where we were all sitting and say, you know, so-and-so got fired, change your name, you know. So you change your name. So I was Dave Mason, Dave Miller, you know,
great.
Easy names that sounded familiar to people, you know. You always had to use names that sort of sounded familiar. You didn't want to use names that were too hard for them to pronounce.
Sure.
So I did that, and then I moved back here in 81, back to Toronto.
And at that point, did you start pursuing,
I didn't pursue anything.
Really?
No. I came back. A buddy of mine had a band, and they wanted me to be their lighting guy, tour manager, because I had experience doing lighting. And but by today's standards, I had zero experience doing lighting. But I knew how to flick switches, and I could figure it out, how to make it look good with the music. And because I'd been on the road with some bands and things like that. And the band broke up a month after their new record came out. They actually had a record deal and everything. And the guitar player quit the band, and then they got a new guitar player, and my friend who was the drummer is a guy I grew up with named Coleman York. He came up to me, he said, "We want you to be our manager." And I said, "I don't know anything about it." He went, "Don't worry, you'll be good." And that was in middle of 1981. And I was working at a stereo store selling stereos. And I called in sick one day to take a gig in London. We got a last-minute gig in London, Ontario, at the Spoken Rim. So at University of Western Ontario, they had a club. All the universities used to have clubs on campus where bands would play. And we went and did the gig, and I came back to work the next day, and he said, "Where were you yesterday?" The boss called me. It was a chain of a bunch of different stores. And I said, "I was sick." He goes, "No, you weren't." I go, "Nah, you're right. Had a gig. We got a last-minute gig." He went, "You're fired." I was like, "Cool." And November 29th, 1981.
Wow.
I always remember that date because I've never worked for anybody since.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Outside of the stint where I was on television on Canadian Idol, I've never got a paycheck from anybody except myself.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice get.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it comes with its downside,
course.
when you're trying to build a business and, staying alive, borrowing to pay your phone bills and things
Sure.
just to keep a business alive. But
So as far as building the business, so November 29th, 1981, you're managing
this band called the Purple Hearts.
Purple Hearts. So where do you go from there?
Did you jump right into, I'm going to manage bands now? That's what I'm going to do? Or is that just
Well, I was just managing that band.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, I guess I'll figure it out. And that's what we did. We figured it out. And I used to hang out at, there's a couple of big agencies in town at the time. And I used to just hang out there looking for gigs for my band and learning from people that worked there. And, you know, I found some people that were willing to, that liked me, that were willing to take a chance with me and my ideas. And one of the guys was an agent there, but signed this band to management. And then I started working with him as his right-hand guy, a guy named Dave Kirby. And Dave had a band called The Tenants, and they had a big hit on the radio in the 80s and early 80s. And then I signed a band called New Regime because I had them open one time for the Purple Hearts. And I went, oh, these guys are great. And I signed them. And we ended up getting them a record deal with RCA. And so, and then the Purple Hearts kind of fell apart. But now I had this recording act called New Regime. But we were also, between us, we were managing a lot of these tribute acts that were happening in the 80s.
Sure.
And that's what was bringing in the money to pay the bills.
Right.
So we had a bunch of them, and they were all quite successful. And I really learned from Dave how to keep bands on the road, because that was the thing, is keep them working, because that's how the money was coming in. And because New Regime got signed to RCA, I had a relationship with RCA. And that's how we ended up licensing the first Hip record to RCA, because I had a relationship there.
So let's jump into the band, the Tragically Hip.
It's kind of why we're here, right?
Yeah, it's kind of
Okay.
why we're here.
Yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what you have to say. So we were talking briefly before we started recording about, I guess the thrust of my question is, what was going through your mind when you heard that demo cassette the first time?
So it was interesting. There's a guy named John Paracol who was he was a radio consultant. So he would consult radio stations on playlists and what tracks to add, and how to kind of position the image of a station in a marketplace. And he worked with a guy named Dave Charles, and Alan Gregg and I became partners in January of 1986, and we had met in December of 85 through a mutual friend. And we decided we were going to get into business together in January of 86. And he got a tape sent to him in August of 86. And John Paracol happened to be in Alan's office. And Alan said to John, I'm going to put this on. And they listened to it. And Alan calls me. He says, I got this cassette from my friend, Hugh Siegel. And his brother-in-law knows these guys in Kingston. And John thinks it's pretty interesting. I think it's pretty interesting. I'll play it for you on Sunday when we go to the baseball game. I said, okay. So he played it for me in his car, and I said, you're right, it's interesting. This guy's got an interesting voice. And Alan goes, we should see them. I said, yeah, I'll set up a gig. So I called the guys over at Larry's Hideaway, and we set up a gig for them to open for a Rolling Stones clone band. And we didn't really care. We just needed to see them play. Sure. And they went on like 8:30 or something like that. And not having seen them before and only heard them and knowing what they were like when they first started, we probably couldn't have picked a better audience for them to play in front of.
Yeah, the Stones.
Because they were a two-guitar, bass and drums kind of R&B kind of thing, right? That's what they were doing. And the Stones were like, it was Robbie and Gord St. Clair's favorite bands, but I didn't know any of that. That was just the slot that was open on Saturday night.
Right.
And I I met them beforehand, said hello, went up to the dressing room, said hello, and then went downstairs. And John, actually, Paracol, came along with us. So the three of us are sitting at this table. And they come on, and Gord Downey says, I can only give you everything, in that deep tenor of his voice, and then does one of his jackknife jumps with the microphone, and then starts to sing that song by them, the Van Morrison's band,
yeah.
Them,
Oh.
I Can Only Give You Everything.
Yeah.
And I go, holy shit. And I look at Alan, and I look at Alan, I look at John, and I literally go, we're signing these guys tonight.
I can't give you more than what I got. I can't expect to get what I have not. I'm gonna give you love until the sun goes down. And I'm gonna leave the summer till the streets are brown. I've tried and I've tried, but baby, you know that I can only give you everything. How can I get you to understand? 'Cause after all, I am just a man. When stars appear and shadows fall. And all the leaves of summer turn to shades of fall. I've tried and I've tried, but baby, you know that I can only give you everything. I don't wanna know this life without you. Ooh, don't wanna leave this world alone. I'd be a modulated child if I was on my own. 'Cause I tried and I tried, but baby, you know that I can only give you everything. Oh, everything. Oh, everything. Oh, everything. Oh, everything.
It was like that. And John and Alan goes, yep. They were like, they felt it too.
Sure.
And then they played like a 40-minute set of some covers and originals, no Stones tunes because they
Yeah.
knew. And you have to understand that a lot of the clubs then, you sat at tables. They were like cabaret type tables. You
Sure.
got served at your table, and that's what they weren't all standing, pushing to the front kind of places. And that Larry's Hideaway was a room like that. And they finished their set, and the whole place stood up, and they got a standing ovation.
Nice.
And we were like, okay, we're on to something here. And then so all of us, the band, myself, Alan, and John, we went to the Pilot Tavern on Cumberland
Yeah,
Street, and we sat and had beers and sat around in a booth and planned world domination.
Yeah. I can only give you everything. Wow. That's quite a
And the
starting
funny thing
statement.
is Alan, when he said that, Alan didn't know he was about to do a cover song. Alan just thought, Alan looked at me and he went, great attitude. Like thought, like he was, it was a great attitude, right? But what really was, because it really was what Gord was, which like when he hit that stage, he gave you everything.
Yeah,
and it
that's
really
amazing.
did send the message.
That's
you know?
amazing.
Yeah.
How many setting up showcases like this and taking a look at bands? How often did you do this in this time
A lot.
period? Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say we did it a lot because, we would go out and see bands.
Sure.
Right? We would go out and see bands, but we weren't setting up showcases for bands that we didn't know anything about.
Right.
Like we heard this and we thought we should see these guys. They were from Kingston. We needed to see them quickly, so we figured it was incumbent upon us to kind of put it together. Right? It was easy. It was a phone call. Okay, guys, you need to show up at this place at this time. Larry's Hideaway, blah, 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 blah. I think they had played once or twice in Toronto, previously at the Horseshoe or something, and like one of those multi-act bills or something.
Yeah.
But that was before us.
Were you getting a ton of tapes from people at this time period?
Not really. I wouldn't say that. No.
So not too much like demo fatigue or anything.
Yeah,
like that.
no, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
It was fairly new. Like I was managing. I had New Regime, and I had a couple of cover bands that were eventually trying to be recording acts, but they were on the road making a living playing covers, and sort of developing them. So I wouldn't say like we had this massive roster or anything.
Sure.
It was just one of those things. Hugh Siegel was a guy that Alan knew that married a girl from Kingston whose brother Fraser, went to Queens with the guys and hung out with them. And he had a van, I think, and used to, you have to understand, Paul had only joined the band maybe 3-4 months before this.
Oh, wow. Okay, right.
Because they had a sax player.
That's
the original band was a guy named Davis Manning. And Paul was going to move. You saw this in the movie. He was going to move to Nashville. And Davis quit the band. And they were like, well, we should just get, Gord didn't want Paul to move to Nashville. Gord wanted Paul in the band. So Gord was like, to the other guys, we should get Paul in our band. So, because he was his best friend.
Yeah, it's the right call. Pretty good.
Do you recall the song that you heard on the cassette? Like,
Well, it was more than one. There was a few. I wish I could remember.
That's.
I've thought about it a lot.
Sure, of course.
Right? Like, what did I hear?
Yeah.
I can remember hearing the timbre in Gord's voice is what I can remember. I can't remember the song.
resonates.
It may have been, I don't know. I probably, it's funny because I was talking to Johnny talking to Johnny today. If I asked him, he would probably know.
Yeah, sure.
So I should probably ask him. And then and then I'll know the answer to what I heard. But we just put the music in. I don't even know if anything ended up on the first EP. Maybe. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun.
How fast did things start moving? You guys sit down to the pilot and plan for the future
Well,
and dominance, and then
we sort of wrote up a plan for them and how we saw them, and the first thing to do was get them on the road, keep them working and keep them writing. And I couldn't find an agent, so I was booking all the shows and trying to keep them working. And then actually right around the corner from where we are now, there was a studio called Sounds Interchange, and Alan was friends with the guy who owned the studio because they used to do a lot of commercials and stuff in there as well. It was a big high-end studio. Some records were made there, but it was mostly for commercials. And Alan knew the guy that owned it. And I used to play in this pickup hockey game on Sunday nights with a lot of musicians. And one of the guys that played with us was Kenny Greer. And, we'd play every Sunday night. And Andy Frost from Q107 played. There was a lot of guys you would know who they are played in that game. And I said to Kenny, we're working with this young band, maybe, because he had talked to me about wanting to get into production and stuff. I said, maybe you'd want to work with these guys. And Kenny was in Red Rider.
Yeah.
So he was like a known guy, and he was a big part of that Red Rider sound with the slide and the guitar and everything. And this was a guitar-based band. And so we put them together, and we got some time in the studio. And we went in and recorded 5 songs. And we couldn't really get anyone to pay attention to it. So we decided, well, let's add 2 more songs, and we'll call it an EP, and maybe we can find someone to license it. And the band was building a following by then. And one of the things we had done is we had set up these residencies, and we did a residency at the Hotel Isabella, and we did the middle Wednesday of every month. And every time they'd have a show, Alan and I would invite different people from the industry to come to dinner with us and come see our new band. But it wasn't like, oh, we want you to sign them. It was nothing like that. It was just
social. It was
just social, but come see our new band. And everybody would see them and go, wow. But because we had we set up these low, wow, those guys are really good. Wow, those guys are really good. How come you're not shopping them around? Well, we're just, we're not ready yet. We're just building it. And by about the 6th or 7th month of doing this, we had lineups around the block.
Oh, wow.
So we were building this live following, which was always what we wanted to do is, let's build the band.
Yeah.
Right? Then we'll worry about the rest. Let's build the band. And so we put these 2 other songs on the EP that we recorded live off the floor at Phase 1 Recording Studios, which was still in Scarborough. And we put out a 7-song EP, and we got RCA to license it from us. And that was, and because we knew if we wanted to get them across the country, we needed a calling card. And we knew it wasn't great. Like, we knew it was okay.
It's raw.
But it wasn't like they don't even play stuff. They stopped playing stuff off that record ages ago. Right? No matter what. They just won't. They don't play it. Right? So even though like Small Town Bring Down and stuff like that, we shot the video in Kingston, and we did that whole thing. And
you mentioned Small Town Breakdown as one of the songs that you sort of have feelings about,
because it was the first song, and we were very specific with our plans. We did things that, like, people thought we were fucking crazy because we were breaking rules all the way. Well, we sat down with the record company, and we said, look, we know this isn't like a big, huge hit record to, what's out there. And remember, we were early in that sort of alternative sound.
Oh, yeah.
There was 5440. There was The Pursuit of Happiness with I'm an Adult Now, right? Remember, this is 1988 was when it came out. Well, we actually put it out in Kingston in 1987. And that was because we were going to put it out early. But the label said, no, we got to put it out in January. We're going to get killed at Christmas time, blah, 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 with a new record. And the band came to us and said, but we told all our friends it was going to come out early. And we said, so we went to the label. We said, let's just put it out in Kingston. Well, we can't do that. The retailers, but how many retailers? There's 2 retailers. We'll put the records in our car, and we'll drive them to the retailers, and we'll drop them off. Right? And we released it in Kingston. Well, it became the number 2 record in Kingston behind U2.
Wow.
Which I think was Joshua
That's
Tree.
Joshua Tree,
in 87, right? So December 87, we were the number 2 record. So when we put the record out nationally, we said, that was the story, is that in Kingston, this was the number 2 record behind Joshua Tree.
Wow.
So we sat the record company down and we said, look, we know there's only about 7 or 8 stations that will play this record. So we don't want you servicing all 30 stations. We want you to service those 8 stations only. And they said, well, if we do that, the other guys are going to complain that we didn't service them. And we said, they don't even know this band. Like, why would they complain? We said, if they complain, say sorry, we didn't think you'd like it, and send it to them. And we did the same thing with media. We didn't service major dailies. We only serviced the weeklies. And if a daily called, we'd say the same thing. Oh, we didn't think, and it's kind of a tiny little indie thing. We didn't think you'd like it. Oh, sure, you can have a copy.
Oh, that's so you were getting like you're building this following by doing that because you're getting these,
Because they were asking us.
bigger market.
We were
people
creating the
asking-
demand
Exactly. Yes.
for it by not giving it to someone, by not spreading it out. Because we knew if we went to 30 stations and got 8 ads, we'd be a failure. If we went to 8 stations and got 8 ads at radio, we were a success.
Absolutely.
And that was the plan. And they all thought we were nuts. They fought us all the way, and then it started working. Now, we didn't sell a lot of records. We didn't. And in fact, we even told the press people, do not get reviews for the record. We want you to get reviews for the show.
Again, that live.
Right. We want
Build that demand.
We want people to come to the shows. Get media out to the shows. We don't care if they review the record. The record was a calling card. Kind of how things are today, where people are using their records to sell the tickets. Well, that was always our MO, is we knew. And I remember there was a writer in Calgary that wrote, because shows then were $5 or $10. It was like under $10, $6 to see a show or something. And it was like, save your $6 on the record, buy a ticket to the show. Which is all we ever, those were our greatest reviews.
Yes.
So by the time the EP ran its course, we had sold about 11,000 copies, which by today's standards would be amazing, right? But then it was small, right? Gold records were 50,000, and people were regularly selling gold records. But we were selling out 1,000 seats across the country by the end of '88. We were selling out massive venues that bands with gold records weren't doing. Because it was all word of mouth. And we had fortuitous situations. First time going into Winnipeg, the guy didn't like how they looked, and after one set fired them. Well, the media just jumped all over it, and before you know it, every club in town was offering him a gig, and we went from, having 2 3-night gigs for this one guy, because he had these 2 hotels, and we were supposed to play 3 nights at one and 3 nights at the other. Next thing you know, we're at, University of Manitoba, and we're at this other club, and it became this big thing in Winnipeg that everyone was getting behind this band that got fired by this guy that no one really liked anyways. And by the Saturday night, there was a lineup around the block to get in to see this band that no one really knew, but
there's a lot of hype.
Right.
Wow. So you build up this live relationship and the hype and everything's rolling. And if you don't have a debut album, then that crushes. It's kind of all for naught, right? And
well, we had the EP.
Yeah, but then I guess you have to deliver on the next thing.
Well,
And
we never thought about having to deliver.
Oh yeah.
I think that's the mistake a lot of people make, is it was just the next evolution.
Sure.
Right? Okay, time to, our relationship with RCA sort of went downhill because the guy who brought us on was gone. A new guy came in. Mm-hmm. He wanted to do a different kind of deal. Because we only had a 1-year license with the record, it was ours, and we walked. Mm-hmm. And we started talking to other record companies. And, we found a home. Mm-hmm. And we ended up getting signed by MCA in the U.S.
And that's the beginning of Up to Here.
Right.
Getting ready to make that record.
Right. We had a bunch of those songs already written.
Because I think floating around on the internet out there are like Kenny Greer demos of a lot of the Up to Here material.
38 years old, I think. I think New Orleans is Sinking, because they used to woodshed those songs in the shows.
The blues on the street, loose and complete under sky on smoky blue green. I can't forsake a Dixie dead shape, so we dance the sidewalk clean. My memory is muddy, what's this river that I'm in? New Orleans is sinking, man, and I don't want to swim.
So they would play them live
Right.
all the time. As they were writing them, they would play them live. So there were a lot of shows that they were doing where those songs were in the shows.
Which really became, sort of a calling card for the band in general, right? Like just working out great ideas,
In front of
the live crowd.
Right.
And building anticipation. I can remember seeing them live and just thinking like, I can't wait to hear this song on a record that I just heard, Like, so I'm already thinking about the next record while I'm at the show.
Because
watching them tour on that record.
But this is one of the things that a lot of people don't realize that was part of our plan, was that it was a fan-first strategy, right? Because we knew that's who they were, right? They were music fans themselves. We were music fans. And it was like always about, do the right thing for the fan, keep the ticket prices low, just be real, right? Mm-hmm. Be authentic. And so they knew that because the fans loved them so much, even in the early years, it wasn't as big, but whoever did show up loved them. And we always underplayed markets, so we always had sold-out shows. Whether we played a 300-seater or a 1,000-seater, it was always packed. And we knew that the fans would want to hear new stuff from us. Like, we could do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they did.
Pretty amazing.
And that was building, that's because they had that relationship with their fans. And it's something I kind of stress all the time with any young bands I work with. It's like, if you don't have that relationship, then you're only as good as your next single.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the kids who are coming up on, YouTube and they're just doing everything at home. They don't have the relationship with the audience or the stage presence to.
But I don't think you can teach charisma.
No, absolutely not.
There's a reason there was only one Gord Downie,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, you can't teach what he had.
No.
So we ended up signing with MCA. There's a guy named Bruce Dickinson signed the band, and he came up with this idea of working with Don Smith. And Don had been the engineer on a lot of Tom Petty records and worked with the Expensive Winos, which was Keith Richards' thing. Yeah. So these were all bands and people that the band loved. And we decided, let's go to Ardent in Memphis and make a record. And that was Up to Here.
What a record.
Yeah, pretty good debut.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, as far as the time spent recording with Don Smith in Memphis and New Orleans for Road Apples, right?
Right.
Any memorable stories from any of that stuff, you popping down or being there, or like what's your process like when?
I'm not a guy that hangs out in the studio. It's sort of like let them do their thing. I do remember we put on a show in Memphis, just to do a show while we were there, because we hadn't played Memphis, so it was like, okay, we're here, let's do a show. No one showed up. It was like 10 people, but we didn't care. And we all went to Elvis's house and did the Elvis tour. And
nice.
It was Elvis's cousin took us on the tour. And
oh, really?
Yeah. I'm Elvis's cousin, young girl, and she was the cousin, and went to Graceland. Yeah. So it was, but it was almost Spinal Tappy, and like we're looking at the grave and we start laughing because we realize it's like the scene from Spinal Tap where they're all looking at the grave, and it was kind of had that thing, But it was fun. I was only in and out, and then New Orleans. I remember Alan and I went down. It was like super. It was September. It was super hot, super humid. They were just running tape. Like Road Apples, I think there was like 60 reels of 2-inch, and they were just, jamming, and they'd capture stuff, and,
Because Road Apples would be the first record they record where they don't have years of
right
of road to sort of like that's the first one that they're writing sort of on the spot, right?
Well, no, they had woodshedded some of those songs on tour, But it definitely, well, look, you have, your whole life to do your first record, and you have 6 months to do your second record.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it works,
Yeah.
right? So, so that was...
So was that part of the rationale to go with Don Smith again?
No, I think it was
comfort and-
listen, Up to Here was successful. We had a
Sounds great.
New Orleans is Sinking went top 10 in America in rock radio, and so we had it did, it blew up here. We were double platinum. So it was kind of like
A bit of a no-brainer there.
if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And so then we did Road Apples.
Makes sense.
And it was a great experience. It was one of those where Dan Lanois had bought this house and was starting to make records there, but hadn't really ever set it up as a studio. He had stuff in there. And when Don wanted to go in there, him and Dan talked on the phone, and Dan was like, well, what speakers should I bring in? This kind of stuff. Because he had a board, but Don wanted certain speakers brought in and things like that he could use for monitoring purposes, and not monitors for the band. But the band was set up around the pool table, and Don was just in another room, like the living room, basically. There was no separation.
Oh, wow.
So the records got much more of a liver feel than Up to Here, because it wasn't a traditional studio. It was like, in a house.
That is so cool.
You can hear it in the album. It feels like 5 guys in a room. Like there's a sweaty presence
Yeah.
on that whole record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the record company in America, they didn't like that record.
No.
It was kind of DOA.
They
with
didn't
them.
like?
No, they didn't like that record.
It didn't. Why? Because it didn't have New Orleans is Sinking Part
Or
2?
Blow It High Dough, or like it. Yeah. Yeah, they didn't like it. It was DOA for sure.
So what?
But we just kept touring, and we kept doing our thing, and we sold more records, and it sold 300,000 in Canada, and by that point, Up to Here was now at 300,000. So we had a nice base going, and it was time to make another record.
All right. So you go to make you go to make the next record, and I can never say his last name.
Chris Sangarides.
Thank you. Greg usually corrects me because I just
Right.
I just butcher it.
Right.
And he's recently passed. But you go to England to record this.
Well, that's where Chris lives, and that's where he recorded. That's where he records a lot of
and
records.
that's how it is. That's what's happening here.
Yeah. And it was like, let's go to England and make a record. Why not?
Yeah,
You
totally.
know? Watching the pound go way up against the American dollar while we're there, because our budgets are in American dollars. And so it became a very expensive record.
Oh, wow.
But it was interesting because Chris had a completely different philosophy on recording. And he said, in order to make it sound like you guys do live, we need to record every instrument individually, not all you guys sitting in a room. So he did the exact opposite approach.
How was that taken by the band and by...
Listen, they liked what Chris had already done, so they went along with it. They weren't going to question. At that point, I don't think they felt they had enough experience as in production to kind of. But that was a big learning experience for them.
They could learn what they like better. And
Right.
That record is obviously...
It did pretty good.
Fully, completely, and it's a monster record.
Right.
Just a monster. Was the label happy with that record?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Okay, good.
It was interesting though because the American label loved it. They would not put out "Locked in the Trunk of a Car" as a single.
Really?
Yes, because the band wouldn't
Just
edit "Fucked Up" out of the track.
Good for the band. Good for the band, but
Sweet.
yeah, that's got to be...
And America was like, even to this day,
They don't
like,
take that.
right? So today you could put it out on a streaming service, it wouldn't matter.
Right.
But then your only option was getting it on the radio.
Right.
In fact, we left it in the video, and Much Music, we just decided to leave it in, and Much Music let it go.
Yeah.
I don't know how I am. I found armor in my belly from the 15th century. Conquistador right there. They don't know how armor in my belly, hashing out a machine revving tension, hashing out a machine revving tension, hashing out a machine revving tension.
If you look at that release schedule, we actually released that record in Canada in October 6th, 1992, but it didn't get released in America till January 1993. This is when we put out, and Courage was the first single in America. And that ended up going top 10 rock and top 10 alternative as well. So we had some success with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's monster success.
Right.
Top 10?
But again, Locked in the Trunk of a Car was never released as a single. It was released in England as a single.
Sure.
I have some killer CD singles that they made in England, and it was like a fold-out thing. Like, it was one of those pop-up things, and when you pulled it, the trunk opened.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
I have a few of them in my storage locker. So
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
and that was for Locked in the Trunk of a Car. But again, like the language-wise, they didn't call it a trunk; they called it a boot.
Oh,
Right, of course.
So it was like, what's a trunk? You know, it was like, but I do remember one of my favorite things, which was kind of when we knew we were kind of at the end of our ropes with MCA in America, was when we delivered the record. The president of the label, who used to be a big radio promotion guy, and after he left the label, went back to being a big radio promotion guy, and he was a very successful radio promotion guy. He said, you know, that song 50 Mission Cap, if it wasn't about hockey, it'd be a hit. So the writing was starting to be on the wall.
So
You know?
that's the last MCA record then?
No, well, yeah, it was the last MCA record. We had recorded Day for Night for them, but they didn't release it.
Because it also has a different release date in America.
Yeah,
right?
because we put it out through Atlantic.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, gotcha. So it was MCA in Canada, though. I see.
I renegotiated the deal. We would leave MC in the U.S. The records would stay with the Canadian company, but we would own them outside of Canada.
Gotcha. So that stuff, that must be a lot of like a lot of work when you're looking for like a brand new label but you've got the following.
We have a following.
Like everything makes sense.
There was people that knew us, that I knew people in Atlantic, and you know, I don't think Day for Night didn't really have hits on it. You know, it had amazing songs,
Yes.
but there was no out and out sort of obvious radio hits like Courage or something like that on it. And I knew that going in. And so Day for Night with Atlantic was sort of like getting to know the label. We did a lot of great touring on Day for Night. We toured with the Stones. We toured with Page Plant. We did Saturday Night Live on that record. So it was a reputation building record for us. And you know, when you think about it, then when we came with Trouble at the Hen House, we had a big hit. We had a single, which was Ahead by a Century.
So stepping back to Day for Night for just a moment, tell us the story about the Stones. Like how does that? Like,
So we're
interesting bookmarks there that you.
So a couple of things you need to know. When we sat down with the band, we told them that in 10 years they'd headline their first arena. That was what we told them when we first started working with them, that if you're going to do this right, in 10 years you'll headline your first arena show. And that was 86. February 10th, 1995, which was 9 years
Maple Leaf
later.
Gardens.
Maple Leaf Gardens.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I'm standing at the board, and a guy named Arthur Fogel, who's a pretty famous guy in the music industry, at that point was working for Concert Productions International, CPI they were called. They were the Stones promoters, and he's standing beside me at the front of house board at Maple Leaf Gardens. We're watching the show, and he looks at me and he goes, "Do you want to play with the Stones this summer?" And I said, "Yeah, sure."
I guess.
And he goes, "Okay." There's 4 shows in Europe. We'll put it together. I said, "Great."
Jeez.
So fast forward to like right after Saturday Night Live, Page Plant are playing at the Dome, and I get a call the next day saying, you know, "Do you want to do shows with Page Plant?"
They saw them on. They saw the.
No, Donald Tarleton was with them, and they were looking for an opening act. And Donald told them about this band and said they'd be perfect for you guys. They're on Atlantic. You guys are on Atlantic. Blah 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 blah. And Robert Plant loved Day for Night. Loved the record, and because it's a muso record, it's much more of a muso record than like sort of a pop type record, right?
Yeah.
There was no Courage, like I said before. So Robert loved the record, and they offered us 17 shows in America, in arenas and some amphitheaters. And while we were on the tour, we were in San Jose, and I was at the show, and the tour manager and the manager said, "Hey, can you come into the office? We need to talk to you." And we were like, I was like, "Oh fuck, what now?" Like something's going down or whatever. And they said, "Hey, listen, we're gonna do 13 more shows in October. Do you guys want to do those shows with us? Robert really loves the band." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, we'll do them."
Wow.
So we ended up doing close to 30 shows with them.
Oh, that's great. If I could jump back to Saturday Night Live for a second, we hip fans constantly talk about it. It's a great performance, and we were waiting like this is the moment they take off in the States. And a lot of people always wondered. I didn't too much, but I feel like I'd be doing them a disservice for not asking if it came up to do one of the big songs, to do a Courage or New Orleans is Sinking or Blow It High Dough.
We were promoting a new record.
Yeah, for sure.
Like everyone after the fact always says, "Oh, they should have played New Orleans is Sinking," or "They should have done this, they should have done that."
It was never even a notion. It
was like, "What songs are we doing?" We're doing Grace 2 and Nautical Disaster.
Perfect.
Those are the two best songs live off this record.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're doing.
Awesome.
And they certainly are. Absolutely. But yeah, that is a.
Everyone's like, "Why didn't they?"
Yeah, in our threads,
like,
our conversation threads on the
yeah,
Facebook,
but everybody.
It's the big what if, right?
Yeah,
But it wasn't about they were being true to form,
yeah.
Absolutely.
right? Like
No argument from either of us. Two.
No, that's why.
well, but
that's
real
why you
hip
love this
fans
band.
get it. Real hip
It's
fans
strange
get
when
it.
people
right?
don't. It's strange when people are sort of
No,
like,
because everyone looks at every opportunity as just like another commercial opportunity, and I don't think, especially Gord, he probably couldn't, live with himself. He wasn't that person. He always people don't realize did you ever hear him say on stage? And you guys have seen enough shows, right? Did you ever hear him say, "Here's the single off our new record"?
no,
Right?
no.
Ever?
No.
Did you ever hear him say anything that sounded like he was trying to sell you something? Come meet us after, we have T-shirts. Anything like that?
No.
Right.
From Kingston, Ontario,
Right.
Canada, home of
'Cause he
Kurt
was
Muller,
in the
Walter
moment.
Frank High, and me, it is my honor to introduce to America my friends, the Tragically Hip.
Yeah, I want to go. I want to go backwards. I know we're rolling forward here, but I want to go backwards to '93 because it was such a pivotal moment in my life. That was my first time seeing them.
Where'd you see them?
Markham Fairgrounds. Yeah, it was on my 19th birthday, so it
Wow.
was like just a spectacular day.
1993,
That's right.
July.
That's right. July 24th.
Yeah.
An amazing
Was
day.
that the Friday or the Saturday?
was the
Saturday.
Saturday.
Yeah, because it was 23 and 24.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to go to both so bad in camp, but I could only get tickets for one. Like this was back when we were using like multiple phone lines in my parents' house to like try and call Ticketmaster.
Although there was tickets for we sold a lot of tickets, but we didn't. Saturday was sold out, but Friday wasn't completely sold out.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't do the
Maybe
camping
just,
part of it.
and we weren't that expensive. Like the tickets
No.
were, by today's standards, it was like a giveaway almost,
Yeah.
Because that was also part of our MO, is like do multiple nights, and keep the ticket prices low so people could come more than one night because the set list changed all the time.
That's right.
So Roadside came about because we'd done a lot of European festivals, and there was a festival called Lollapalooza that had come through, but it never toured the country
No,
in
it's like
Canada.
Toronto, Vancouver.
It played Montreal, I think, but it never went right across the country. And we thought, someone's got to take this right across the country, and so someone take this kind of show, this kind of alternative music thing. And we came up with the idea, and we went to me and a guy named Ralph James, who's an agent. He was like a younger agent at the time. He used to be in a band, younger meaning in years, but not in age. He's a big time agent to this day. We went and had a meeting at CPI and pitched them the idea of it, and they bought the idea. And then,
what's CPI?
Concert Productions International. So they were our promoters.
Gotcha.
So we went to them and said, we have this idea. We want to do this. We want to go into non-traditional venues, meaning fields, and build cities and do it that way, hippie vendor things, like do the whole thing. And they loved it. They loved the idea. Camping, parking, they saw lots of different revenue streams, and we saw it as an opportunity to bring a real festival across the country and play places that weren't getting this kind of music in their towns. And then we started to try and build it. And with their help, because they had reach with a lot of international agents and international bands, we had this list of bands that we thought would be cool, and we were going through them with the band. And Mark Norman, who was running the West Coast part, it was called Periscope, but it was part of Concert Production International. He was running Periscope. He had a relationship with the Midnight Oil guys, and he said, I think we can get Midnight Oil, and we all loved Midnight Oil, and how could you not? And then we started, building it out of that. And Hothouse Flowers had the same agent in the U.S. as Midnight Oil, and the international acts didn't have Canadian agents. They just had a North American agent out of the U.S. So we were able to get Hothouse Flowers, and the band loved Lanois' record. And because we had recorded Road Apples in his studio, we put Dan on the show, and it was like that kind of thing.
Real community type vibe.
Yeah, and then like in Vancouver, we had different lineups in different places. Like in Vancouver, we had World Party on the bill. We had Pierre Ubu on the bill. So we had different lineups. And I remember in Toronto, we had like the 5 main acts. Crash Vegas was one of them. Play on the Friday night, but Saturday we had music all day.
Yeah.
Right? We had all kinds of bands. We had The Pursuit of Happiness. We had Thomas Trio and the Red Albino. We had a ton of bands playing all day. So we made it like a real all-day fest, which is what Vancouver was like, and some of the other ones. We were adding bands, in different places. But there was 5 bands that were the core of the festival.
And then you'd pick up to run the whole day. You'd pick up like more regional acts?
No,
kind of
no.
thing, or-
I mean, World Party wasn't regional. It's just like
No,
we
I
had
guess
tried to
no,
get
of course not.
World Party and Peruba to do more shows, but they were only available. So we were like, well, let's just use them in Vancouver and Victoria. You know, like we'll use them for those shows, and that's kind of how we. But we had the 5 sort of main acts that were doing all the shows, and then when it came time for '95 to do it, we were, because we had established it, it was easier to get bands to commit. So then it was the same lineup for all the shows.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I did go to 95 as well. I didn't go to 97, though, I don't think.
97 was probably financially the most successful year, because it was a big thing to pull that off,
yeah.
right? You know, not every show was as successful as the other shows. Because, you know, sometimes we go into Ottawa and it's like, it's a mud fest. It's pouring rain. We sold a lot of tickets in advance, but we didn't get the walk up that we would, you know.
Yeah.
It was successful as a tour.
Yeah.
Not every show was as successful as the next. And it was very expensive to do. Mm-hmm. And again, because we weren't charging more than $50, it was like, you know,
Was there ever a thought to do a fourth one? Or when
I think after 97, it was starting to get a little tired, I think. Like we needed a bit of a break from it. You know, the album cycles started to change slightly, so we were trying to do it every 2 years, but 99 didn't really work out. And then 99, we ended up playing Woodstock 99, which
what a performance that is.
Right?
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, all that crap that happened at Woodstock happened after we left. Like, we were out. We were gone. You know, I was home. I was living in New York at the time. I remember not leaving Sunday morning and driving home and not looking at the newspaper or anything, not turning on the TV that night. Like, not turning on the TV, nothing that night. Woke up the next morning, was walking to my office and looked at one of the newspaper boxes, and there was like, Woodstock burns, and there was like pictures of things on fire on the front page of the paper. I was like, when the fuck did that happen?
Oh, man.
It was kind of aggro, though. Saturday night when we were there, it was kind of aggro.
Sure.
You could tell things were going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, Limp Bizkit, and Limp Bizkit kind of got it real aggro.
Like the plywood went out and people.
I was right there when it was happening, and it was aggro. Yeah.
Yeah, the end of the 90s were a weird change.
Yeah,
in
and
music.
so it was happening with us too. Like, I don't think there wasn't the desire. Like, we kind of did it, and 97 was so good. Like, it really was so good. Mm-hmm. In terms of the lineup, you know, Los Lobos and Sheryl Crow, and I mean, every year had great lineups. I mean, even 95 getting Ziggy Marley.
Oh, yeah.
Was like, we couldn't find that one final band. There was we needed that anchor, you know, like that Midnight Oil that we had the year before.
Yeah.
And I was on vacation in Jamaica, and I was staying at this place that I always stay at, and they were doing shows there. And the guy who owned the place I knew for many years. Like, I'd been staying there since 1986. And this was, you know, maybe March 95 I was there. And he says, yeah, Ziggy's going to be playing here. And he was a guy from Montreal that owned this place where I used to stay. It was a small independent resort kind of place. And he says, you should meet his manager, Adis. So we're having lunch one day, Adis and I said, what are you guys doing this summer? And he was like, well, we have this, are you available in this time period? And he said, yeah. I said, I have an idea. Let's stay in touch. When I go back next week, we'll see. And I reached out to the promoters, and I reached out to the band, and I talked to the band. I said, I think I found the act. I said, it would be so cool because I know our fans. And Ziggy Marley's show is basically, it's Bob Marley's band.
Yeah.
Right? And Ziggy and Steven, and all they do is Bob Marley songs, and like, our audience will love this, and it's a big band, and it'll sound amazing, and everyone,
summertime,
summertime reggae, like, you can't lose with those songs, like some of the greatest songs of all time. And the band was like, yeah, that would be awesome, right? And I contacted this guy at Deese, and I said, we made an offer through their agent. And fortunately, the guy who was their agent, I knew, and he loved the idea. He knew how big the band was here. This is their agent in the U.S., but he knew how big the band was here and how much of a big deal it would be. And we negotiated the right fee, and they agreed to do the shows. And it was awesome. Like, it was awesome having them on the road with us.
Oh yeah.
And the interesting thing is, that's why it was so easy for us to get Sheryl Crow, because the same guy was Sheryl Crow's agent. Mm. So when we made the call to him, he already knew, like, yeah, this is a slam dunk kind of thing. Like, he could say to Sheryl, look, this is going to be like the real deal for you, and you'll be positioned. She went on right before us, so it was like,
Nice.
So as we roll into the 2000s, you say, like, album cycles are changing, album sales are definitely changing. And
they're changing for everybody.
Yeah.
Especially in that world.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, Napster has
started to take effect.
That's right.
I saw the writing on the wall in 95. We sat the band down in 94 and said, we need to get on the internet. That's why they have the hip.com. Like, nobody was doing that. No. Record companies didn't have websites.
I remember you guys were doing promo stuff for Hen House. And it was very, like, I remember the road with the lightning bolt.
We did all of that stuff. Nobody was doing that stuff.
No.
We were so ahead of the curve. I came to them with those kinds of things, like, this is what we need to do, because this is where things are going. We sat them down and said, look, in 10 years, we said in 5 years, this was in 1995, you'll be selling music directly to your fans. And they were like, nah, come on. No, this is how fast it's going to happen.
Well, that's where I wanted to go. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Hip Club. Like, I wanted to talk about that whole idea and, the genesis of that and what you ultimately did with that.
Well, I that that as there was attrition in the band, you have your peak moments, and then it's like, how do you maintain a certain level? And to me, it was like, well, we need to make sure we can stay in touch with the fans, because at some point radio may not be as supportive, and they were our conduit to the fans. So we built the mailing list, and we built the mailing list. We started building the mailing list on Day for Night.
Oh, wow.
We had an email list we were starting in Day for Night, because we used to do it via mail, and then we started building the email list on Day for Night.
I remember Tales from the Hip. I think I subscribed to that for a while.
Right, and so we started to do all of that stuff, and my now ex-wife, but my wife at the time, she worked for this company in New York that had created a loyalty program for Nature Made Pharmavite, which was a big vitamin company. And they were like a web development firm that she worked for. And they had developed this program where they could generate unique codes for every item. So every bottle had a different code on it. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could have a unique code for every fan?
Oh, wow. Okay.
So why don't we start the Hip Club? And I went to the label with it, and I said, here's my idea. We're going to put what looks like credit cards in every record, and each one of those cards is going to have its own unique number on it, and we'll get this company, because they had a program to generate those codes, and all they had to do was get the codes to the people that make the cards. You guys find the people to make the cards. So the marketing team went and found someone to do the cards. No different than loyalty programs, Aeroplan, any of those programs. Because I see, like, we needed to get those fans. We needed to be able to communicate directly with them so we wouldn't lose them. Mm-hmm. So we knew who they were. And the idea was, let's put the card in each record, And if you buy the record, you join for free.
Amazing.
Right?
Great idea.
Pretty good deal.
Right. So we had these technology guys helping us build the sites. We had 2 websites. One was the regular hip.com and one was protected, which was behind the door, which was you needed your card to get in. And merch was 10% cheaper, and you got special offers, first in line for tickets. And because part of that, if you're going to build those loyalty programs, you have to offer value. So the creed was over-service the hardcores. Turn them into completists where they have to own everything. Make them want to be a part of everything and offer them anything you can offer them. Sound check, parties, like whatever you can do to, solidify that relationship with the fan. And that's what the Hip Club was all about. And that's what we did.
There are people that are selling Hip Club cards on eBay at this point.
Well, I have one.
It's still.
I have one. It's in my drawer. It's in my drawer in my office. I have no. I just have one.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm gonna hold my mic for this one.
I have one. I have a lot of stuff that would probably sell for a lot on eBay, but that's in my storage locker.
I remember Buffalo. Is this what we're doing? Long time running. What are we doing? Long time. Long time. Does your mother tell you things long when I'm gone? Who you talking to? She telling you I'm the one. It's a great mistake. I'm wide awake. Driving rained out, weatherman with fingers of sky. It pokes it out, it pulls it in, it don't know why. It's the same mistake. It's been a long time running. It's been a long time coming. It's well worth the wait. Don't go anywhere, just on trips. We haven't seen a thing, still don't know where it is. But it's a safe mistake. It's been a long time running. It's been a long time coming. Well, it's all the same mistake. Didn't rise and right away. A drop of caribou. I'm ten on you. I'm ten on you. Ten on you. You've got a boat say you've been told. You work me against my friends and you'll get left out in the cold. It's the same mistake. It's been a long, long time running. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long, long time running. Swam where the wind, it's where the wind, it's it's well worth the wait.
Shortly after that, the relationship with the band
Right.
ends at that point.
I think at that point, I think that philosophically we're going in different directions. And, Gord had done a solo record. There was a little bit of weirdness about that, as you can imagine, right? Gord lived right down the street from me. We were probably closer than I was with everybody else. Part of it was just simple geography. He literally lived 8 houses away from me. And I think that philosophically, because I saw this was where things were going, it was probably hard for them to admit that that's where things were going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you can only maintain a certain level for so long before you have to start to figure out how do we reinvent. So even the theatrical extravaganza tour that we did on the In Violet Light album, the shows were kind of getting tired. Like, I could see Gord wasn't as excited about playing the arenas, and it felt like it was not, they weren't great. They weren't amazing. They weren't like holy shit kind of shows. And so I thought, you know what, let's scale it back a bit. We'll do some big festival shows in the summer. We'll do 2 nights at the amphitheater. And then we'll do multiple nights in these 3,500 seat theaters. Bring in a show that looked like an arena show. And be the first test for selling tickets to the Hip Club members. And we sold 80% of the tickets for the tour in a day.
Oh, wow.
And all to Hip Club members before we even ran an ad or went on sale to the general public or anything. And those people were freaking out. Like, holy shit, I got 4th row seats. And it was like that kind of thing, which is what I was trying to do. And creating this kind of circus atmosphere so that when people came to the show, they felt like they were at an event again, which is what we always were trying to do, is create this event around the Hip. They would never go to radio stations when they were on tour to do interviews. I would insist that the radio stations brought their van down to the show, and we would go to the van because I wanted that van on site. I wanted, when people came up, there were 3 different radio stations and news crews. It was like we were at a scene. I wanted that kind of crazy environment that when people showed up, like carnival circus type environment. So here was a chance. So we called it the theatrical extravaganza, and I said to Robbie, let's do like a circus kind of thing, because Robbie always led with the art stuff. And he went, great idea. And we had like the 2 purple hippos dancing, and it looked like a circus tent. And in every market, I hired stilt walkers to walk through the crowd.
Oh, that's awesome.
And when you came into the venue, there were stilt walkers walking around and clowns and shit. It was like, let's create this environment. But also, what I also noticed is the press were getting, and the press still mattered then, right? But the press were getting kind of tired with the band. It was like, you could just feel it, right? Well, all of a sudden now, they were putting on these spectacular shows. I had convinced Gord. Gord always had a lot to do with picking the opening acts, and Sam Roberts was starting to bubble up, and I knew about it, and I thought, this guy, we should get him to open for the Hip. It'll be really good for him, and it'd be good for us, like this young, new, cool guy, and it was like the right kind of band.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to Gord, I really want to have this guy, Sam Roberts, open the show. And Gord was like, was back and forth because he didn't really know him. And I said, no, you can just trust me on this. You got to trust me because this is one, I know what you like. And I'm telling you, you will thank me for this. And he went, okay. Because I would not let go. I would not let up on it. And after the first show in Victoria, we're standing side stage and he looks at me, he goes, good call, right? Because he ended up, they became like best buddy. He loved Sam Roberts. So it was a great opening act. And now the press was reinvigorated because now they were seeing the Hip up close and personal, even though it was 3,500 seat theaters, but multiple nights, the set changed every night. We had this amazing light show that we brought in that could have been in an arena. And all of a sudden we were getting these 5-star reviews again. And it was reinvigorating the fans and the media and everything else, which was the purpose of it. Yeah. Is that I felt we had to take a step back to take steps forward. And I think some of the guys in the band may have thought that I was kind of trying to make them smaller. And this was all about repositioning to take the next step forward.
Right.
And that's where philosophically I think it changed.
But you maintained your relationship with, like you were talking earlier about, you were talking to Johnny the other day. You maintained relationship.
Initially, I would say no.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. But over time, over time, definitely, yeah.
And did the?
I mean, it was 18 years.
Yeah.
Right. And then I continued to manage Gord for his next solo record as well. So, so there was, and that, that became a little weird. And then all of a sudden I'm on television and I'm like, at one point I remember Gord calling me, he goes, you're more fucking famous than me. And I'm like, he goes, my kids want to go see the show, So his wife and kids were coming to the shows to see the tapings of Canadian Idol and stuff. It was funny. It was funny. Those were funny moments,
Yeah.
But, yeah. So I would say that, I mean, when it went down, it was pretty tough. It's like, but, it's like everything else, time heals. And when they did their last tour, I went to 6 of the shows and I spent some quality time with them all. And, I needed to be there.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go next. Was that last tour? What was that like for somebody who had the kind of relationship?
Well, you have to understand, I hadn't seen them in like 13 years. I hadn't seen them play live since February of 2003.
Oh, jeez.
And I hadn't seen any shows. Seen some Gord shows, but not the band.
Yeah.
And I went to the second and third shows of the tour were in Vancouver. The first show was Victoria, then they did 2 nights of Vancouver, and I went to those shows. I didn't want to only see them here, so I flew out to Vancouver because, again, they weren't surrounded by the world. Once they came to Ontario, it was like the world comes out, right? But there it was a little easier to kind of hang and get quality time. So, Gord was, obviously already diagnosed and he was sick. And so we got some quality time, and I got time with all of them. And we spent some good times together. And kind of after that, we kind of rejuvenated the relationship.
That's really wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah. So, they invited me to the premiere of the film, and I spent time with them that night. Gord wasn't at it because he was pretty sick at that point.
I remember I saw it at TIFF.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
at the premiere.
Yeah. And it was sort of like, oh no, like Gord's not here. Is this, like what does this?
Well, actually, Robbie said to me that night, have you talked to Gord? I said, I've been trying to get to see him. And I've been communicating with his brother. And Robbie goes, go see him as soon as you can. If you're going to see him, now's the time. And that was September.
That's September, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty tough. I mean, that last show in Kingston, I was there, and I don't mind saying this now, but all the shows I had been to, I went and I had a big smile on my face through every show. Like, I was like watching them as a fan. I took a different friend to each show.
Oh, that's great.
So everyone could experience it with me, you know, coming backstage. And like, so in Vancouver, I took 2 different friends that I knew there. I went to Hamilton and 2 of the Toronto shows. I took 3 different people to those shows. And then Kingston, I took another friend. And it was a beautiful day, the day of the show in Kingston. It was a gorgeous, sunny day. And I woke up Sunday morning in my bed and breakfast. I had a bed and breakfast room in Kingston, and it was pouring fucking rain. And I looked out the window, and it just all came over me, and I just broke down because it was like, holy shit, like, it's really over. But it didn't really hit me until that morning, where I went, okay, this is it. Like,
Jeez.
Looking out the window, pouring rain, it was like really depressing.
Yeah.
And it was like that was the moment. So I had a good cry for about 20 minutes and got my shit together and had breakfast and drove home. Yeah.
I think we're all in kind of that feeling of not really knowing that this was it, or like in the moment following the tour, watching things on television, and you know, in a big.
Well, you didn't go to Kingston.
No.
Did you go to the Toronto shows?
I went to one of the Toronto shows, yeah.
I couldn't get tickets.
Which one did you go to?
I went to the middle one. The one that was going to be the last one, and then they added the third one.
Well, I always knew there was going to be 3. I went to the first and the third.
Oh, okay. My wife
Yeah.
went to the third one.
But I remember at the third one, I was standing on the side of the stage near the end when they were doing Grace 2, and Gord saw me from the side of the stage, and he starts singing lines from Grace 2. Like, literally, I'm standing on the ground and the stage is up here, and he's on the stage as if he's looking to the crowd, but he's looking right at me, and he's singing the words to the song right at me.
Oh, how powerful is that?
Yeah.
You've had an incredible journey through history with this band, and
I guess.
yes, oh, fuck off.
I'm
Come on.
sorry you got fired from that stereo shop. That's a bummer, man.
Oh, I have a great story because the guy who fired me, he still was kind of in the business at some point, and I think I was talking to my brother because my brother used to work for him at some point too, and I said, I need a new turntable. My brother goes, oh, you should call so-and-so. I said, oh, why? He goes, because, you know, he's selling stuff like that still. So I said, okay. So I called him up, and at that point he knew what had happened and where I, you know, and I said, and I was, you know, it was when I was still managing the band, and I said, yeah, I need to pay. I think it was this turntable. I forget what it was. Oh, I know. It was a printer. It was a printer. He was in that business, HPs and stuff like that. Yeah. So he says, yeah, you have to come up to the office, though. I want to see you. And I'm like, okay. It was one of those. I was like, okay. So I go up to his office, and we sit down. And I say, you know, I never thanked you. And he said, why? And I told him the story. And I said, when you fired me, I said to myself, I'll never work for someone else another day in my life. And that's because of you. And he took that as a badge of honor. He was so happy. So we're in the lunchroom, because he was a crazy guy. We're in the lunchroom, and he says, let's go have lunch. We'll have lunch in the lunchroom. He had like 200 employees, and he had this big company. And he stands on one of the tables, and he said, do you know who this guy is? I fired him in 1980. He starts telling the story to all his staff. So you can see there is life after me, like he's telling this story. So if I fire you, you know, it's like...
That's great.
He turned it into like a big thing, right? It was pretty funny. Okay, can I have my printer? I need to go.
Yeah.
thanks so much for your time.
Yes.
And this has been great.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Fully and Completely is a Modern Superior podcast, proudly sponsored by Long Slice Brewery. To rate, review, or subscribe to the show, visit Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or anywhere else you get podcasts. For more information about the show, our guests, or Jamie and Greg, please visit www.fullyandcompletely.ca. To join our Facebook group, visit Facebook and search for Fully and Completely.